You'd like a video resume. You got it. Mock. Okay, so this happened about 7 years ago and I just never really thought to share it here until now. I was looking for jobs in small shops in my town. I had just recovered from a nervous breakdown, so my husband was stressing that the goal of this job was to dip my toe back into daily life, which meant anything that even hinted at being stressful was not an option. We were very poor and husband was working 3 jobs to keep us afloat while I recovered. He's quite literally the best. I dropped off my resume at a cute little shop and heard back by email, asking me to write a brief essay about why I wanted to work at her store. I knew I wasn't supposed to go work for someone difficult, but I was trying to stay positive, so I wrote the essay. It felt weird and insulting to have to find different ways to be like I'm super passionate about registers and dealing with rude people. But I did it. She then responded, thanking me for my essay and then asked me to create a video resume. To make minimum wage. At a small clothing store. Before my breakdown, I had been a comedian. My husband and I used to make sketch videos, so we had a green screen and a shitty camera and lights, everything left over from back when we did videos. So I decided to give her this video resume, which she was so pompous, egomaniacal and dense that she actually took it seriously. She then told me unfortunately I didn't present myself in a professional light, lol, and she was not interested in hiring me because the video didn't show me shining with customers. I responded by saying that I couldn't tell if she wanted a genuine applicant or a funny video, considering this entire exchange has been insulting enough that it must be a joke. I also thanked her because now my video was going slightly viral, and it was because of her insulting behavior. She then asked me to come in for an interview to prove that she was doing this all in good faith. I then told her that it's not my job to make her feel better, but that she should be very careful asking for video resumes after an initial resume and an emailed essay, as it begins to lean into the territory of wanting to see what the applicant looks like in case they don't fit her preferred aesthetic. Unfortunately for her, several others had experienced her and, upon seeing my video, it became a big conversation in the community and she had to do a lot of backpedaling. She temporarily closed her store until the situation was forgotten. I moved away and don't know if she's still around anymore, but to this day I'm pretty sure she helped me make my video masterpiece that I just can't ever top. Edit. I'm floored and I'm touched and I'm grateful. I'm trying to keep up with all the sweet and supportive comments. Thank you all. I know it's tacky, but I wouldn't be a comedian if I wasn't tacky. If you'd like to see what we do now, you can follow us on Instagram at A Couple of Nerds or whatever platform you're on. We also have a podcast available all over called A Couple of Nerds. Come play with us, so if you enjoyed this you might like what we do now. Regardless, thank you all for taking the time to check out my video. The me from 7 years ago would be so very touched. Logo versus mock. I have a kid who's a freshman in high school. The school has a rule that logos be 3 inches or smaller, no pictures. I found him a cute shirt with a duck on it, and did a quick measurement with the ruler on my phone. I got 3 inches exactly. I buy it and send him to school. The next day, I get a text from him to come bring him a new shirt. A teacher he doesn't even have this year took him to the office where the official measurement was 3 5/16 inches. Well, I'm broke and it's a spendy shirt that I just happened to get for cheap, so I'm not really able to just let it sit in his closet and not be used for an entire year. So I grab the dress code from the website and scour it to see if we can somehow make it work. He's on an AB schedule, so even though it's been 2 days, he wears the shirt the very next day and the same teacher sees it. She pulls him into the office and he calls me. My son knew if this happened to just ask to call home. I told him to pretend like he was calling for a new shirt, but just so that he could get me on the phone. I ask him to give the teacher his phone so we can talk. Here's what happened. Teach, your son is still wearing a shirt that breaks dress code. As it's the second time in a row, he's getting in school suspension. Me, no he's not. Teach, I'm afraid that's the rules. He will have to miss the rest of the school day and be in detention. Me, haha, no. You misunderstand. The shirt no longer breaks dress code. Your rules state that any logo over 3 inches is a violation, correct? Teach, yes, and we have officially measured it once again and it's still far too big. Me, but doesn't your dress code also say that multiple pictures of the same or similar design is a pattern? And pattern are allowed by dress code, correct? Teach, but it's not a pattern. Me, hey son, take off your jacket and turn around. What that snooty, wanna use a stronger word here, but my son reads these too. Teacher didn't know is that I have a Cricut cutter and massive amounts of iron on vinyl. I had scanned the logo into my computer and printed over a dozen or so more pictures in various sizes and adhered them to the back of his shirt. I just told him to wear his jacket. It was a cold morning so no one would question why he's been wearing a jacket at the start of the day. Me, after a decent amount of silence and being asked to be put on speaker, I do remember reading an exact section and line, quoting word for word multiple pictures of similar design as a pattern. Wouldn't you know, It doesn't say they have to all be on the same side of the garment. Your dress code also allows for jackets inside as long as the hood is down. Was the hood up? Longest pause ever. A few minutes later, my son is telling me he's on his way back to class and there was nothing that snooty teacher could do about it. I filed a complaint with the head of the charter school that a teacher that my son doesn't have is targeting him this close to the start of the school year. I'm waiting to hear back.
I asked for a 14-day extension to sit for license retest, ending up doing it 2 years later. LOC in 2004. I wanted to upgrade my driver's license here in state of Victoria, Australia. Training and testing for heavy endorsements are done by external companies. On such day, I did my medium rigid emister course and test. A year later, I returned to do my heavy combination HC semis/articulated trucks. The same process as last time, a couple of days of training with one guy, then getting tested by another. I take my piece of paper to Vic Roads Licensing Authority, who make the changes all good. Over the next 6 years, I go about doing my thing, driving trucks, buses, coaches without incident, injury, or a single infringement notice. Come 2011, I call up a coach company that was one of many in the state that had been contracted to supply coaches to the state's regional railways. 3 busy regional routes were being shut down as they were installing a new bypass track RRL project. Asking if they wanted a hand, they said sure. So many vehicles were required for this shutdown that you had almost zero chance of getting time off during this 2-week shut. At any one time, there were 270 vehicles in the circuit. Every driver was given runs that had them driving well up to the very limit of their legal driving hours. There simply just weren't enough drivers. A couple of weeks before this shut commenced, I get a letter from Vic Roads telling me that my licensed tester had allegedly been selling heavy vehicle endorsements at the pub. Everyone who had ever been tested by him had to be retested. I wrote back and said that I'm fine with that, but I just signed up to work on this RRL shutdown. Can you give me an extra 2 weeks? No, if you miss the deadline, your endorsements will be cancelled. I wrote to the Director of Licensing saying that I was working at the upper limit of my legal hours. Can this wait 2 weeks? The response was to do the test regardless of your hours, directing me to break the law. Instead, I petitioned the court to intervene. Her Honour didn't give me 2 weeks, she gave me 12 months. Vic Roads was PI'd. They cancelled my licence. I went back to the judge and told her she issued an order that my licence be reinstated. Vic Roads, a government entity, presented with a signed order from a judge, refused to reissue it. Sunshine Magistrates Court is directly across the road from the Sunshine Vic Roads office, and so I walked back to the court and asked the clerk to be heard once more. I'm sure you can imagine that a magistrate does not appreciate being ignored. She scheduled a hearing for a later date. As I had an order from the court that my licence was valid, I completed the 2-week shut. Vic Roads engaged outside counsel to handle this case. I went self-represented. Though I did sit down with a lawyer at a 15-minute free consultation session, and the great advice I got was to do everything in my power to be accommodating to the court. So these hearings went back and forth a bit. Vic Roads wanted me to get tested sooner, and we agreed on a date. The end, no quite. Unfortunately, on the day of my retest, I was an involuntary patient in the psych unit after trying to gas chamber myself. There was also another court hearing scheduled on the same date. The hospital wouldn't let me call the court, and so my licence was once again cancelled. Upon my release, I contacted the court and asked for another hearing. I apologized to the court for my absence, citing my psych admission. Vic Roads pounced on this and tried to argue that I was unfit to drive not just heavy vehicles, but my whole licence. Her Honour reinstated my licence, but did entertain their request for a psych evaluation. I said I was more than happy to, but who's going to pay for it? I rely on my licence to earn $1, and Vic Roads not only keeps cancelling it, but ignores this court's directions to reinstate it. In the next hearing, I argued the ridiculousness of a psych evaluation. I was suicidal, not homicidal. The court also unwilling to pay for an eval, so the requirement is dropped. Vic Rhodes agrees to another retest. I sat it and passed roughly 2 years after asking for 14 days. I think in the span of 12 months, my license was cancelled about 6 times. I know I ended up with a pile of copies each time they reissued it.